David Mitchell, owner of a $2 billion hotel chain, sat on the sidewalk of Hollywood Boulevard in Los Angeles with his 8-year-old son, Ryan, dressed in rags, begging for spare change. Not out of necessity, but as a desperate experiment to find a woman who would love his son without knowing about the money. 33 women had passed in 2 months. Some dropped coins with disgust. Others quickened their pace. Many pretended not to see. Then came Sarah, 28 years old, blue housekeeping uniform, who knelt before them completely ignoring David. She looked only into Ryan's eyes and asked if he was hungry. When the boy nodded, she didn't give money. She did something that changed everything. She took her lunch from her bag, a sandwich that was all she had for the day, and gave it to Ryan. She promised to return tomorrow. Same place, same time. David watched her walk away and knew he'd found what he was looking for. But Sarah harbored a secret that would destroy his perfect plan. She knew exactly who he was, and she had her reasons for pretending not to know. Hollywood Boulevard pulsed with the chaotic life of Los Angeles on a September morning that threatened rain. David Mitchell, 42 years of accumulated success, built on the ashes of a poor childhood in East L.A., sat against the wall of the Chinese Theater with his 8-year-old son. The clothes purchased from Goodwill had been carefully aged and dirtied. The beard grown for weeks provided authenticity to the disguise. Hands deliberately darkened with dirt completed the transformation from magnate to beggar. The idea had germinated 3 months earlier, when yet another nanny had abandoned the Beverly Hills mansion after discovering the family's wealth. 33 women in 2 years, all transformed by the revelation of riches. Those who showed genuine affection for Ryan morphed into sycophants obsessed with pleasing the father. Those initially indifferent to the child became affectionate mothers on the surface, performing roles to access the wallet. The boy, motherless since a car accident when he was 3, had developed an infallible radar for detecting falseness, withdrawing further into himself with each disappointment. The decision to pretend poverty represented David's extreme attempt to find authenticity in a gilded but hollow world. He had orchestrated everything meticulously. Rented a rundown studio apartment in Koreatown using false documents, enrolled Ryan in a public school under an assumed name, constructed a credible identity as an unemployed widower surviving on handouts. Even his closest business associates remained unaware of this double life. 2 months of performance had produced results that confirmed his cynicism. Beverly Hills wives dropped bills without making eye contact, as one inserts coins into a parking meter. Tourists transformed their fake misery into digital souvenirs for Instagram stories. The authentic Angelinos, those who knew real poverty, passed with looks mixing understanding and suspicion. They sensed something off, but couldn't identify what. Ryan experienced the adventure with the innocence of one protected from the world's brutalities. His father had presented everything as an elaborate game where they played roles like actors. The cramped studio became a secret base. The meager meals were explorers' rations. The hours on the sidewalk were scientific observations of humanity. Sarah Williams turned the corner walking quickly, late for her shift at the Beverly Wilshire Hotel. 28 years of hardship were written in the premature lines around her eyes. The blue housekeeping uniform, pressed to perfection, betrayed the pride of one maintaining dignity in poverty. The worn but polished shoes told stories of long hours standing and insufficient wages. Something in Ryan's eyes stopped her. It wasn't physical hunger she read there, but emotional starvation, a need for affection she recognized immediately. She knelt before the child with natural movements, completely ignoring the adult. Unusual behavior, as everyone addressed the father first. The interaction that followed lasted mere minutes, but left an indelible impression. Sarah offered no money she didn't possess, nor empty promises. She extracted her lunch from her bag, a modest sandwich representing her only substantial meal of the day, and handed it to Ryan without hesitation. Her promise to return tomorrow wasn't occasional charity to cleanse her conscience, but a serious commitment made to a needy child. As Sarah hurried away, David observed her with new attention. The way she walked betrayed chronic fatigue, but also determination. How she had touched Ryan's hair showed natural maternal instinct without theatricality. The fact she had asked for nothing in return, not even verbal gratitude, distinguished her from every other person encountered in 2 months of experimentation. The following weeks saw the establishment of a routine that became the emotional fulcrum of the day for all 3 participants in this strange dance. Sarah arrived punctually every morning at 7:30, always bringing something for Ryan. A muffin taken from the hotel's breakfast buffet, fruit purchased with rare tips, once even an illustrated book found at a yard sale. She stayed exactly 10 minutes, the maximum allowed without risking termination. But in that brief temporal space, an extraordinary connection occurred. The young woman possessed the rare gift of communicating with children without condescension or artificiality. She conversed with Ryan as an equal, listening to his observations about the world with genuine interest, laughing sincerely at his jokes, reflecting seriously on his existential questions. The boy, starved for authentic attention, blossomed under this unexpected sun. David witnessed these interactions with conflicting emotions that tormented him. The joy of seeing his son flourish, mixed with growing guilt over the perpetrated deception. This woman gave what little she had to a child who possessed everything, sacrificed her own well-being to alleviate non-existent suffering. The experience of simulated poverty was paradoxically educating father and son in unforeseen ways. David, raised poor but now accustomed to 20 years of luxury, rediscovered the harshness of the street, the cold, penetrating bones on damp mornings, the looks that passed through beggars as if transparent, the humiliation of being considered a social failure. Ryan learned the value of small kindnesses, discovering that a sincere smile was worth more than 100 expensive toys. Sarah gradually began bringing small extras she skillfully masked as coincidences. A sweater she claimed no longer fit, purchased with a week's savings. Shoes a non-existent cousin had discarded, bought at a thrift store with funds meant for her mother's medication. Extra food the hotel would have thrown away, paid for from her own pocket. The delicacy with which she offered these gifts betrayed the profound understanding of one who knows dignity is often the last wealth of the poor. One particularly cold October morning, Sarah arrived visibly ill, coughing and shivering with fever. When David suggested she return home, her response struck him like a punch. She couldn't afford the luxury of being sick, because without work she wouldn't eat, and neither would her diabetic mother. It was in that moment that the cruelty of his experiment revealed itself in full scope. He was playing with poverty like a costume, while for Sarah it was a prison without escape. But there was something in Sarah's gaze when she observed David that suggested undeclared knowledge. Sometimes she studied him with an expression mixing sadness and barely contained anger. Once, while Ryan had momentarily wandered off, she had murmured words that had frozen David's blood, words about fathers teaching lies to their children, spoken with precision, suggesting more than general observation. Doubt began corroding David's confidence. Was it possible Sarah knew? He had covered every trace, verified every detail. Yet those looks, those half-sentences, that subtle but persistent tension suggested his secret might not be so well guarded. One November afternoon, Los Angeles rain transformed the streets into improvised torrents. David and Ryan, caught in the downpour, sought inadequate shelter under awnings when Sarah spotted them while returning from an extra shift. Without hesitation, she led them to her studio apartment 2 blocks away, ignoring David's polite protests. Sarah's dwelling was smaller than a single bathroom in the Mitchell mansion, but every inch spoke of dignity, preserved against all adversity. Obsessive cleanliness compensated for the poverty of furnishings. Paper flowers, handmade decorated peeling walls, family photographs in frames repaired with tape created an altar to affections. On the wobbling table, library books stacked testified to a thirst for knowledge that poverty hadn't extinguished. The walls hosted diplomas framed like treasures, GED earned at 25 while working, ESL certificates, CPR certification, community college credits accumulated in hope of a better future. While drying Ryan with her only good towel, Sarah revealed fragments of her life with the naturalness of one with nothing to hide. Her father dead in a construction accident when she was 15, leaving the family without support. Her mother sinking into diabetes complications that drained every penny. The years spent cleaning houses, offices, hotels, always dreaming of more, but always pulled back by immediate necessities. She prepared mac and cheese with economical movements learned through years of survival.
Enjoying the story? Give it a little like, and don't forget to subscribe. Now then, let's carry on.
Speaking of how she'd seen people fall from heights, lose everything, and how that fall was almost worse than being born at the bottom. The way she pronounced these words, with her gaze fixed on David, contained an encrypted message he caught immediately. It was then David noticed, half hidden among other volumes, a 5-year-old Forbes magazine. His face dominated the cover above the headline, "David Mitchell, the Hotel Empire Challenging Giants." His blood froze as Sarah followed his gaze with studied calm. Her explanation about crossword puzzles was delivered with such perfect nonchalance, it rang like an alarm bell. Their eyes met in a silent duel lasting seconds, but feeling eternal. She knew, and she wanted him to know that she knew. But the unspoken pact was clear, not in front of the child. Ryan, blissfully unaware of the electric tension between adults, chatted happily with Sarah, recounting school adventures, new friends, daily discoveries. Sarah listened with total attention, but periodically her eyes darted toward David with looks that were daggers of disapproval. When father and son departed, Sarah placed a hand on David's shoulder with pressure that was a warning. Her words about children who forgive but never forget, about the responsibility of a father who lies, resonated in David's mind for days. 2 days later, David returned alone to Sarah's building. He found her sitting on the steps, still in uniform after 16 hours of work, as if she had expected him. She showed no surprise at seeing him, only a tired resignation mixed with determination. The confrontation that followed was brutal in its naked truth. Sarah confessed to recognizing him from day one. The hands too manicured, the posture too upright, the gaze of one accustomed to commanding poorly disguised under rags. She had done research, discovered the dead wife, the procession of fleeing nannies, the child alone in that enormous mansion like a mausoleum. Sarah's initial impulse had been to expose him publicly, to shout to the world the hypocrisy of a billionaire playing poor, while real needy suffered. But then she had looked at Ryan, had seen a child starved for authentic love, not spoiled by money, but damaged by maternal absence and gilded solitude. And she had chosen the child over her anger. David attempted justification, explaining the desperation of finding someone who would love Ryan for himself, not for the inheritance. Sarah listened in silence. Then her anger exploded with volcanic force. She spoke of her daily lunch sacrificed for a child who dined on lobster, of medicines she couldn't buy for her mother while he wasted millions, of dreams buried under mountains of bills while he played poor out of existential boredom. But the anger quickly extinguished, replaced by infinite weariness. She recognized that Ryan was innocent, a victim of paternal neuroses, and deserved genuine affection regardless of his father's lies. When David impulsively offered to hire her, to pay any amount, Sarah looked at him with a mixture of pity and disgust. She explained, with the patience of one speaking to an obtuse child, that accepting money would corrupt the purity of her affection for Ryan, transforming her into yet another sentimental mercenary. She proposed instead a pact. She would continue participating in the charade, but on her terms. She would decide the timing and method of revelation, and David would have to accept whatever consequences followed. The following weeks saw Sarah orchestrate a masterful transition from fiction to reality. Instead of a traumatic revelation, she built gradual bridges between Ryan's two worlds. She took him to public but beautiful places, free museum days, street concerts, libraries, teaching him that beauty wasn't a monopoly of the rich. She spoke of her own work with dignity, not shame, transmitting the value of every honest occupation. She told stories of how she made hotel guests happy with perfect rooms, how every job contributed to society's functioning. Ryan began perceiving the world not as a Manichaean division between rich and poor, but as a complex fabric of people with different fortunes but equal dignity. With David, she was more severe. She forced him to find real employment as a construction worker, to experience 8 hours of backbreaking physical labor. The meager salary he earned had to be entirely donated to genuinely needy families in the neighborhood. The man's transformation was painful but profound. Hands that signed million-dollar contracts developed authentic calluses. The back accustomed to ergonomic chairs knew the pain of real work. One evening, during one of their dinners in Sarah's studio, Ryan posed the dreaded question: when would they return to their real home? The silence that followed was dense with meaning. With Sarah's silent consent, David began a partial but honest confession. He admitted to owning a larger house, to not being truly poor, to having searched for someone who would love Ryan sincerely. The child's reaction surprised everyone. Not anger or sense of betrayal, but a simple question that cut through all adult complexity. Would Sarah continue to care about him even if they weren't poor? The woman's confirmation, pronounced with solemnity, was that true affection knows no economic conditions. When Ryan asked why his father had lied, David admitted his own stupidity, the fear that had guided his actions, the lesson learned about the futility of lies. It was a moment of growth for all, the father admitting error, the son forgiving, the woman facilitating reconciliation. 6 months later, the Mitchell estate in Beverly Hills showed signs of transformation beyond the aesthetic. Still luxurious, but no longer ostentatious. Still large, but no longer empty of life. Sarah had moved in not as an employee, but as a family member, bringing her mother, who now received adequate care in the renovated guest house. The change had been neither immediate nor simple. Sarah had set non-negotiable conditions. She would maintain part-time work to preserve her independence. Ryan would remain in public school to not lose contact with reality. And above all, no waste or unnecessary luxuries. Every dollar saved on frivolities would be invested in concrete social projects. Thus was born the Mitchell-Williams Foundation, not another facade operation for the rich seeking tax breaks, but an organization providing real services. Workplace daycare for working mothers, scholarships for night school, microloans for small businesses. Sarah directed it with the efficiency of one who had learned to make every cent count, personally verifying each project, ensuring help reached those who truly needed it. Ryan thrived in this new balance. He had found in Sarah not just a maternal figure, but a model of integrity. He maintained genuine friendships from public school, children who played in the mansion without awe because they had been educated to see beyond appearances. He had internalized the fundamental lesson. Human value isn't measured in portfolios. David had discovered more than he sought, not just a mother for Ryan, but a partner who constantly challenged him to be better. The hotel empire continued prospering, but now with rigorous ethical policies, fair wages, dignified working conditions, training and advancement programs for all employees. Sarah personally supervised these changes, ensuring they weren't merely cosmetic. Public revelation of their story caused sensation in Los Angeles high society. A billionaire pretending to be a beggar? A housekeeper becoming partner and co-director of an empire? The gossip mills went into overdrive, but in working-class LA, the real LA, the story became modern legend. They had seen too many rags-to-riches stories where people forgot their origins. This reversal, rich learning the value of poverty, touched deep chords. One evening, while watching the sunset over the Pacific from the terrace, with Ryan reading placidly between them, Sarah reflected on the situation's irony. David had sought a mother for his son through deception and had found a family through truth. She had sought only to help a needy child and had found a purpose transcending daily survival. When Ryan asked if he could call her mom, the silence that followed was pregnant with emotion. Sarah's assent, conditioned only on being able to call him son, sealed a family born from deception but grown in authenticity. As the sun set over Los Angeles, painting the sky in shades of gold and purple, an unconventional family contemplated their improbable journey. The sign at the mansion's entrance had been replaced. No longer Mitchell Estate, but simply home. Because that's what they had become. A home where love wasn't bought or faked, but built day by day with small gestures of authentic care. Sarah continued bringing Ryan breakfast every morning, the same ritual born on the street, but now transformed into family tradition. No longer out of necessity or compassion, but love, the same muffin, the same kiss on the forehead, the same unspoken promise to always be there. Because some truths need no words. True love is always free, always abundant, always ready to forgive lies when they're born from fear and die in truth. In Los Angeles, they say money talks, but in that Beverly Hills mansion, 3 hearts had found home, proving that sometimes the most elaborate lies reveal the simplest truths, and that a housekeeper can teach a millionaire the true value of life. Hit. Like if you believe true love transcends social classes. Comment with the moment that touched you most. Share for those who believe family is a choice of the heart. Subscribe for more stories that warm the soul. Sometimes the biggest lies reveal the deepest truths. Sometimes pretending to be poor teaches what it means to be truly rich. And sometimes, just sometimes, a housekeeper can teach a millionaire the real value of life.